Man, did I push a lot of buttons to get here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Hopefully, I have to now check to make sure I am, in fact, live at the right place at the right time. View your channel. Yeah, I have to assume I am live. Well, if I'm not, that'd be a surprise because there are people in the chat and, well, yeah. I don't know why it says mental health and productivity, but here we are. It's not actually mental health at all. I wonder if I'm capable of editing the title as we speak. Might be. Let me see. Real estate sales training. Boom. Save. Now does it make more sense? This is really just on Facebook that it should, or on YouTube. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Your channel. So I want to just go ahead and get started. I want to briefly talk about my perspective and my ideas. I know very few real estate channels have not already covered this. I was reluctant to talk about it until it was over, and that is the Sitzer Burnett lawsuit. And in a nutshell, because I'm going to make it easy on you, if you want to make it easier, if you want to make it hard, then there are plenty of other channels for you to watch. But if you want to make it easy, I'll give you a solution. I'll give you the answer to what we should be focused on and how this will affect the future of real estate. Because there are far more impactful issues in the real estate world than buyer broker commissions. Now, I'm sure if you are exclusively a buyer's agent, and if you are spending a lot of money on platforms like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, internet inquiries, which are sometimes called leads, sometimes you call them leads, I would be worried for you because you've been used to having you could do this rain dance where you put money in and it rains inquiries and you can convert them into leads and you can sell real estate by walking into houses and not having a whole lot of scripts and dialogues, just being a good person, having a good personality, opening doors, smiling, and let the house sell itself. Now we're faced with a challenge of actually having to have sales skills and competing with other agents, not just on personality, but on features and benefits as to why we are better than the other. And before any of this would have evolved, you could just meet a buyer, and if you had a good rapport or a good connection and a good system for following up, or they just liked you enough to follow up with you, then the buyers would stick with you, and inevitably you'd get a call from them and show them another house. You put them into the MLS. You would be able to half-ass it into a couple of sales. As long as the buyers came through, you could hold open houses, buyers would walk in. My opinion, what's going to end up happening is we're just going to have another piece of paper to put into the listing agreement. We're going to have another variable to put into the contract. We get the sellers to sign it, and that's that. If it turned into something far more concise that says, no, there is no room for representation by both sides, it is absolutely cut and dry. I would love to know your opinions, by the way. How are you selling via email, phone, SMS? I'll get to that question, Titus. How are you selling via email, phone, SMS? Well, yeah, let me get to that. Yeah, go ahead and close that if you want to point in another direction. Thanks. So we have the options now to either go out and get it or wait for it to come to us. But before, everybody knows who was marketing and promoting real estate as a business to generate inquiries or leads, as you call them, you are more than anything getting buyers. Anybody who spent any kind of money on the internet was probably looking for buyers. Even Zillow and the big ones, Realtor.com themselves, have always had a hard time cracking the code of how to get sellers, homeowners to raise their hand versus buyers who are out hunting the internet. You see, homeowners don't necessarily go online and search for very long. All they do is go online, see the value of their price, and bail out. It's not like they go to Zillow and then they say, well, what does Redfin say? What does Realtor.com say? Most consumers don't think that way. They just go on. Maybe they search the keywords, how much is my house worth? But for the most part, homeowners who might be interested in selling would start by opening their front door and seeing 10 pieces of propaganda. They, as a homeowner, you kind of already know because it just seems to land on your front porch, whether it's an agent knocking or an agent calling. This information isn't hard to find because it comes to you. As a buyer, the information for finding is far more spread out because you have a lender, you have a number in mind, what you're willing to pay on a monthly basis, and then you go out and hunt. And as a buyer, you think, well, maybe this site has more listings. Maybe this site has more software to give you more information. And you sign up, and you sign up, and you sign up. One thing a lot of people don't realize is that, and these numbers could be a little off, but Zillow in specific, I say Zillow because they're the elephant in the room. They have 195 million monthly active users. And this is like a year or two ago. It's hard to find the data. It used to be a little bit less, but let's say it's 195 million according to this source. 109 million monthly active users. That's a social media platform, by the way. 195 million monthly active users, but only 5 or 4 million houses sell. These 190 million other people, who are they? What are they? Nothing, but they're being sold back to you or anyone who is going online. And these are the same individuals who go and sign up on Redfin. They go sign up on Realtor.com. They sign up on every website because the public doesn't understand that there is one MLS. They think that, I don't know that they think it through, that there's just one source for the information and you can rely on that one source. Find an agent and the agent will connect you to the source. But on their free time on the couch while they're sitting watching Netflix and binging, they just search through the top apps, download all of them, register wherever, put their name and email because it's so easy to click one button. That's also another thing is back in the day, buyers would have to fill in a form. Now you just hit sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, and it auto-populates a form. And you are under the impression that it's a valid contact. And in most cases, it is a human. However, is it a human in your area, right? If you're advertising in your area and they're looking in the area, chances are they are. If you're looking for a listing, which is the goal of most real estate agents because, well, the functions work differently. You see, as a listing agent, if I sign a contract, I have a different set of work tasks that I do. But as I'm working, other buyer's agents are working for me to find a buyer and I get paid. But as a buyer's agent, you can find one buyer and spend tons of times. Like if you're one agent, it'd be very hard to service many buyers because they take time physically driving unless you hired other people. But I said one agent, it would take time to go from door to door to door. So most of the top agents in any town USA heavily focus on listings because they can leverage, I believe the word is arbitrage, they can leverage their time better by having listings and being a powerful marketing individual. So with Zillow's 195 million plus the other 100 millions and millions of people, what's going to happen in the future with buyer's agents? Again, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is we're just going to get one more piece of paper that says, are you sure? In California, believe it or not, we have on the listing agreement, they have an agency disclosure. We have another separate agency disclosure, and we have another agency disclosure that says, are you sure you know who I am and what I'm doing and what I could be doing for other people, but I'm doing it for you right now? We're probably going to have another one that says, are you sure? Are you sure? You're sure you're sure that you know that you sure you that you know that you know that you're sure that you know how this works? Don't sue me. It's always amazing when I hear about that case, though. It's like the sellers just had no idea. I just find that hard to believe that they had no idea. I did hear that the contracts were different in those states, so maybe it is harder to explain. I know for a very long time, I've been doing this 30 years in California, that the contracts have always been written as buyer agency and fiduciary. So we've always been very clear what our relationship is with the buyer or with the seller and how it operates. And if I find the buyer who represents who, this all has to do, most of these things have to do with shady agents. If an agent's shady or unprofessional or just not good at their job, it's very easy for them to misrepresent the facts or breeze over things that may or may not be important. For example, when I represent a seller, it's very obvious that I'm transparent and that I'm honest. For me, honesty has been very easy all my life. It's the easiest thing to remember is the truth. So I tell it like it is. And if something ever gets questioned in the future by a seller, I know my standards of transparency and honesty. So if they ever try to catch me in a lie, I know it's not possible because I just don't have a reason to lie. I may not know a truth, and so, but even then, I wouldn't make up a lie just to get away with it. But when I have a seller who I'm explaining the agency and that there is a chance that I could bring in a buyer myself, that it's going to be a situation where I'm not negotiating anything, that the buyer is going to come in and pay a price and I'm going to accommodate the transaction, and that we could all realistically sit in the same room and agree with everything and be done. And if there's a question about the physical condition of the property, which is really the only negotiating or sticking point, is the physical condition of a property. Seller, I encourage them to tell the truth. Buyer, I encourage them to get an inspection, and I will try to get all the questions answered in between. And if they have questions between them, I will just easy time knowing who you work for and what the job is. And if a buyer wants, and I'll explain this to a seller, if a buyer wants me to make a lower offer to the seller, I'll call my seller and I say, hey, I got this buyer who's asking. I know you told me no, and I already know the answer, but I still want to ask. Are you guys open to it? And the seller goes, hell no, James. I go, hey, don't shoot the messenger. Just had to ask. And so I go back to the buyer and say, hey, I tried, right? Whereas if you're representing a selling agent, if you're representing a buyer, then you have, someone would be like, oh, well, you didn't do a good job. You could have done better convincing the seller. No, the sellers have two concerns. Think about this. This is coaching and training. The sellers have two concerns. How much am I going to get? And when do I got to move? Right? And how much am I going to get will also include, do I have to fix anything? What are the logistics? But at the end of the day, it's how much am I going to get, right? They want to sell it as is, or they're willing to do repairs. It comes down to how much am I going to get? When do I got to move? And most of the time they say, I need to move on this day. Dig? Buyers are concerned with two things. How much is it going to cost? And when can I move in? And of course, how much is it going to cost? Do I need to make any payments to fix things up? Are there fees associated with the HOA? But they want to know how much is it going to cost? And if you can address those two concerns, the problems are solved. And if anything else comes up in between, it's going to be about those two conditions, the move-in condition and the cost. Everybody wants to know when can they move and what's the cost? How much is it? When do we move, right? Simple as anything. So I want to encourage you guys to ask any questions. But again, I really, that's all I want to spend time on when it comes to this lawsuit, because at the end of the day, they're going to argue their brains out. Attorneys are going to make more than they're worth. Especially, I'm not going to go into it. Attorneys are going to make money. Sellers might make a couple bucks. I'm sure some of us are thinking, are we going to have a seller calling us up and wanting their money back? I would be shocked. I mean, no, I don't think anyone's even asking themselves that question, because the broker takes the brunt of the responsibility. But at the end of the day, I sure as hell wouldn't think any of my sellers would think that that was a thing, because again, I am transparent. I'm very transparent. So we have a comment in the comment section. Titus, I have no idea what that question is about. I couldn't even paste it into AI and have it spit out a clarification. Hey, how are you selling via email, phone, SMS? So there are 5 levels to communication. Marketing, selling. Well, selling, marketing. I've got very specific definitions just so that my brain understands whether it's active or passive and what I should focus my time on. I run with words to give meaning and clarity to my behavior for the entire day, week, month, 30 years. I want to identify it, right? Just like perhaps you go to a calendar, you want to identify your time slots. So you put in your calendar and you say, I'm going to do this. I need to put things in boxes or my brain just shuts down. I believe that there are 5 levels of marketing, and one is active marketing and one is passive marketing. So marketing is a coin with 2 sides. One side is active and one side is passive. On the side that is called active marketing, you can call it telemarketing or telephone or door-to-door solicitation, door knocking. Those are active, meaning that in real time we ask somebody a question and it's not it's a demand for an answer. It's in real time with a real person, not a passively waiting, not a being put on hold, or the answer is given immediately. I can get my results right now. If I stand up and knock on 100 doors, 25 will open and 25 of them will give me an answer. Even if they close the door, the answer is no. I will have an answer. I will know the answer to my question of whether or not 123 Main Street is interested in selling, or pretty much a whole neighborhood, right? Or 25% of it, the ones that open the door. Active. The other side of the coin of marketing is called advertising, right? Very, very different. It is passive. It is sending out something into the universe and waiting with a call to action. You're familiar with that? A click funnel of sorts, where you do things to try to get them to come to you through your methods, whether it's a funnel or a stream or just a communication, drips or pop-bys or touches or whatever you want to call it. It is something sent over the fence, but you don't see and you don't hear. And if it's got a good call to action, maybe you hear or see, but you can wait. So when you ask me about selling via email, phone, SMS, I'm talking about 5 degrees of selling. We have mail, which is passive, meaning you send a letter and you wait. Email, meaning you can send an email and you wait. Sure, you can attach not a call to action, but you can attach a little spy, which is an open tracker, to see if they read it. But these open trackers are notoriously buggy because some of them are, hey, they opened the email. Some of them are, hey, they read your email for a certain period of time. If it's got a video associated with it, with a specific video for that consumer, you can see, hey, they watched X amount percentage of the video. There's even with Dub, for example, DUBB, they're a sponsor of my show. They're way better than BombBomb. You can actually, they will have a response or a reaction to the video where they give you like a thumbs up or a woohoo, kind of like a like or a heart, like an Instagram, that they confirm that they received it. But that's email with a tag, with something that comes back. And of course, mail, email, and text. That's your question. Email, phone. Phone is active. I use Mojo. Phone, I make outbound calls to complete strangers or people who might be interested. That's called follow-up. And I ask if they're ready, right? Follow-up and cold lead generation on the telephone are 2 similar but slightly different tasks. So how am I doing it? How am I selling? I don't sell via SMS. SMS is the one sacred thing that at this point is still, to me, considered taboo, and it should be for all of you. If you're using automated machinery to mass blast texts to people, text is a very intimate, it crosses the threshold. And it's interesting that on my hand, I say mail, email, text, and that the edge that you cross over to passive versus active is text, because text is bordering on active because they get it. Like, there's just very rarely people who have a spam blocker on their text device. Even if they have gone through the trouble of putting some sort of blocking mechanism, it still goes into a different file in there. I have it. I think it's No More Robo Killer, a few different apps out there will take that text, and it won't alert me right there, but it'll show, hey, I got something in the background, and then I have to look at it. So it kind of forces people to actively engage in real time. But how many texts can you send out remain unanswered? So for example, if you mass blast text 1,000 people, do you get 1,000 responses back? Absolutely not, because it's not real time. But if you talk to 1,000 people, do you get an answer? Absolutely yes. And the answer could be no. But you do absolutely know your answer. Following the difference? And so I have a very thick, dark line crossing those two methods of marketing, because I want to know, based on money and time, what is my best use of time and what is my best use of money. My best use of time is trying to find people right now and putting them into a database. And my best use of money is to send objects of marketing to those people. So if you have nothing, you can go out and door knock right now using my script and generate 1 or 2 people a day, every day, so that by the end of the month you have 30, 40, 50, depends on how hard you go. That at the end of the month, instead of spending your money on the sky, the cloud, you could spend your money on hitting those people, because now they know who you are and you know that they might be interested. Does that make sense? I'm not saying to send mail to those people who didn't open the door. I'm not even saying send mail to those people who opened the door and said yes. I'm talking about lead generation and follow-up using those 5 methods: mail, email, not text, phone, door. Text, again, going back to the text, is just as a last resort when I have someone who I know that they know me and I know them, and we had some dialogue and now the communication is falling apart. I'm very careful to abuse this, because again, it is very personal. It is very intimate to text them, especially if they're like me, where they get that little red icon and they can't function unless they open it and reply. But how many texts do I ignore a day? I got probably 2 texts today. I got one from a builder. It's sitting, look, I got one right here. Hi, James. This is blank with blank homes, LLC. Do you have any off-market fixers we can take a look at to buy all cash? Because they know I'm a listing agent, I don't mess with that. I've got 20 people who I've got relationships with, previously builder investors that I've got on my list. So not only do I swipe, but I swipe left and mark as spam. So hopefully it does something in the universe to get them out of my book. But I get one of those twice a week and I ignore it. If you reach out blindly to someone who's not interested and you spam text them, they're going to ignore it. If they don't ignore it, highly unlikely that they're just going to say no. They'll probably just say F you or go to hell, because it is an intimate channel. And I'm not an attorney. I don't even play well on the internet, but I think it might be borderline illegal because of costs per text. I know back in the day, faxing blindly, because it cost people money in ink and paper, that you could get in trouble because you're imposing a bill on someone. I don't think very many people have phone, what do they call it? Phone carriers who charge them per text. But assuming it is a thing, it was in the beginning, you would be unknowingly knowing that you're sending them a bill that they didn't sign up for. You know, if it was a penny a text, and here you are sending one, you're like, give me my pen. And it's intimate. So I just don't mass text. That's why I don't like these platforms. I think KB Core does have something where they do text, but I'm sure they're smart enough to know that there's some like opt-in. And even then, an opt-in, how many times can you text your database? It's just not a thing. People want to consume things on their own platform. There's a reason why real estate agents are in the top 5 most hated people in the world. We got the attorneys, we got car salesmen, and we got real estate agents. We're just there because we're too damn pushy. Instead of, if you are going to actively prospect, if you are going to actively reach through and call someone, and you know you're interrupting, that's why they don't like it. Why not develop a script or a method? Them. Right? What is this? Did I just freeze? What the hell? Did I just freeze? I don't know what's going on here. I suddenly got an alert. Hopefully I'm still live. I can see I'm still live down here. Okay. All right. I believe it's just warning me that I'm not live on Facebook. Hopefully you guys have caught me on the YouTube. So anyhow, it was frozen for a second, right? Tiras, yeah, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I'm watching me here just to make sure, but I'm back. So anyhow, I'm very, because since 1993, I was brought into the business. My mom and dad were also real estate agents. And it was just kind of second nature that when we wanted to do something and we saw them making money, that there was a time in the very beginning, early 92, I was still in the military, but 93, that we automatically were telemarketers. Like if you wanted to work with mom and dad, you got on the phones. So, it was before the do not call list. It was just a paper list. It was strictly just a Plantronics headset, paper list. When I joined them, I got 2 Plantronics headsets, 2 paper lists, and I would start manipulating it. And my sister, my brother, my sister, I don't get it. Anyhow, I don't know why it's freezing. I guess I could make sure. I'll just make sure with Nicole that no one's on the Wi-Fi. We pay extra for good Wi-Fi. Doesn't matter. Make sure nothing's on the Wi-Fi. I keep freezing. Anywho, I'm watching myself on YouTube, so if it's frozen, I'm back. A pain. It's technology. It's almost easier to just go live stream from my phone, but I wouldn't have all these cool tools. So, Reynaldo, I wanted to get to your answer. I talk a lot, but I have a lot to say. That's why I do this. Ronaldo, we will have a more creative mindset conversation for the sellers to have more incentive to help buyers with closing costs. Somehow we can finance some way to pay for the buyer's agent fee. Yeah, that's the same answer. To even try to, this is going back to the lawsuit that just, it's not over. That's the thing, is like, it's not over. It's not even ended. Like to talk about it, to even waste a calorie or a brain cell on this right now is such a waste of time. It's almost like I should block the words Sitzer Burnett from all of my platforms just because EXP is my broker, and I will wait for them to say, hey, there's a new form with CAR, right? I'm curious about NAR, obviously, what they're going to do, because rumor has it they do fight for us. They spend some money. And all of the things I saw was, yeah, okay, the CEO makes a bunch of money for NAR, who's retiring, which is golden parachute, that they spent stupid money on an advertising firm. Nobody gives a shit about their advertising. I absolutely hate the commercials they put out on any platform about realtors. I would have rather not wasted my money there. Give me that back. I think it's necessary for us to buy into a lobbyist for our interests and the interests of homeowners. I think that's going to be it's going to be felt. Who else can we depend on? The governor? I live in California. Enough said. He's doing a great job with homes. Not. Oh, Lord. Okay, so going back to the methods of communication and lead generate, I want to start bringing solutions. I think the last video I talked about mental health, and I got pretty dark. Like I started what you'll see through the history of my YouTube videos, when I start talking about a certain subject, it's because I'm struggling with it. If I'm talking about low inventory, it's about struggling. If I'm talking about going out and hustling, it's because I'm being lazy. If I go out and talk about like making more calls, it's because I'm not making enough calls. Most of the content I make is me talking to the camera, but 1 inch below is me. So I'm really talking to myself and sharing the conversation with you guys, which at this moment looks like 0 viewers, and I lost everyone. Stupid software. I think there's about 4 people. I don't know how many people. 400 people. I'm just going to start adding a 0 to everybody in my world. That'll also make me feel better. It's by the thousands. I really wish more people would listen to my message, but if you look across the YouTube platforms, you will find that real estate sales trainers and coaches who are heavily emphasizing door knocking and cold calling, you will find them to be very unpopular, like their viewers. Mike Ferry, like everybody knows him. What's up with his YouTube channel? Very, very small. Like I think it's 30,000. He's the OG. He puts content out there. But nobody wants to hear the truth. They like to make it feel good, right? They enjoy what Tom says. And Tom's a great speaker. But if Tom ever started shifting exclusively away from marketing, because we're kind of getting a little to the point as a species where marketing is starting to get annoying, and we are now pulling away from the phones. Like it was one thing to say step away from the phone or disconnect for a while, but now I feel like it's easier because I don't want to, right? When we first for years with social, it would take us in and we'd be there for a while, and it would feed us that dopamine, those hits. But I think at some point we're going to get bored with it because that's just how we are as humans. It doesn't matter how good the internet, the TV, the phone, doesn't matter how entertaining it gets. It will hit a peak of entertainment value, and then we will learn to become bored with it. I think I'm getting there now, where I look and it kind of feels like the same. So now I go do something else. And you probably, again, talking about the way I create content, you can see I don't create as much because I'm bored with the idea of sharing everything that's been shared before. It just seems impractical. My focus is to get back to basics. So watching Greg Harrelson is another great one. Neil Schwartz is another great one. These are great YouTube channels that don't have a whole lot of following because they talk about prospecting. And when I say prospecting, I only mean 2 things. There are only 2 ways to prospect: by the phone and by the door. Everything else is advertising. They're both marketing methods, but everything else is advertising. There are only 2 ways to prospect. So when someone says prospecting to me, prospecting is not farming. Just as door knocking is not leaving stuff at the door and running. Door knocking is knocking. And you would think, yeah, that makes sense. But some people confuse it. And I just, my little platform with a few people who do hear me, I'm on my soapbox insisting that we change these definitions so that we can know our behavior is effective or ineffective, why it's not working and why it is working. And in many cases, marketing, advertising in particular, is disguised as work, but it doesn't work. And so you feel like, man, I'm doing all of this, all of that other stuff, everything but door knocking and cold calling, and it's not working. Well, that's because it might not be work. Man, I'm putting out a video every day. Some people get lucky, some people don't. Some people need to work much harder. Some people actually make millions of dollars. Some people don't. Some people can work harder than some people and make less than. It's just the way the universe works. Some people are different. So we focus on being ourselves and do what we got to do. So I want to provide solutions. As I mention the problems, I want to offer solutions. I offered a solution to the real estate lawsuit, and that is, if you see anyone or anybody talking about it, skip past it. There's so much other information on the internet. Just skip it. Don't even listen to it. Wait for your board of realtors or your broker to say something. Then it will matter. Until then, all it will do is give you an opportunity to feel better, feel fearful, feel defeated, and you don't have that luxury. Sure, some might say, well, James, it's good to be educated, right? For what? In case a buyer or a seller asks about the lawsuit? Here's a script. Seller says, hey, James, what's this I hear about the lawsuit with buyer's agents and seller's agents? Well, here's the script. If I'm assuming this is at the listing presentation or it's a listing I have now. James, I heard we don't have to pay the buyer's agents. That's right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I'm going to encourage you to see how it works out by just me trying to sell the house. I will advertise. I'll put it on Zillow. I'll put it on Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com, Remax. I'm going to put it on every website in the world. And I'll hold open house. I'll do everything that you would think I would do. And if it doesn't sell, then we might need more exposure. As a buyer, when a buyer goes into the marketplace, they go and find an agent. Most qualified buyers are working with an agent. Would you agree? And they probably would say, well, yeah. I'd say, if they are not working with an agent, at some point they're going to call on a sign, or they're going to go online. They're going to stumble into an agent, and then they're with an agent. I would like to focus on marketing to those agents, because those buyers are potentially the buyers who are going to come to your house. What that lawsuit says is that they don't want to advertise to those agents by paying them. Well, you remember traditionally it was X%. Well, now it's not that X%, but if you sign here, it is that X%. And then they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Problem solved. If you have a buyer who says the same thing, give them the same answer. Say, hey, here's how it is. Here's what they're trying to do. Here's how we're going to do it. If you want this house, I will open the door for you, and they are paying a commission because it hasn't changed here. And it probably won't change much. There are two halves of the market. So we solved that problem. The other problem I was going to address was the inventory. We absolutely have less inventory. There's much fewer homes for sale on the market. How do we find homeowners who might be interested in selling? I'm trying to, this is kind of being sarcastic actually. How do we find homeowners around here, right? I'm a real estate agent, this is my office. How do I find homeowners who are interested in selling? Because that's where the inventory is. I'm going to remind you, by the way, if it was 5 million homes 2 years ago, and it's 4 million homes this year, that's not that much different. We're not, now if it said 1 million, a lot of us would be gone. It'd be over. But it's not. So it's just a little bit less. If you sold 20 houses last year, you sell 15 this year. So why are you shut down? If you sold 2 houses last year, you sell 1 house this year. I'm talking to people who are trying to keep a steady 20 to 30, right? The mega producers have got their thing, but they're also probably worried about how are they going to support buyer's agents if they don't exist. They got their own worries. I usually direct this at the individual agents. The one person operation with a TC, maybe 2 agents, husband, wife. They're bread and butter real estate agents. So when we think, where can we find a homeowner who's interested in selling their house? We could advertise. Let's advertise. We can leave items at their doorstep and then they'll call us. Good idea. Okay. Are we going to drop them off or are we going to mail them? Mail's expensive, man. It's 70 cents a stamp. I asked Nicole yesterday because we were talking about stamps. She goes, it's 70 cents. I don't know why I thought it was still like 55, 60. It's 70 cents a mail. And bulk mail, a lot still. So in order for you to get a listing, you're not going to be able to send 100 bulk mail. Maybe not even 1,000 bulk mail. Maybe not even 10,000 bulk mail to get somebody to pick up that piece of paper and say, woohoo, I think I'm interested. No matter what call to action you have on there, highly unlikely. It could happen. Now, if you were doing that marketing thing for a couple of years, then I would say you probably have name recognition, and it's possible because that's how the market works. It's called farming. If you've been farming, then good for you. But if you haven't, assuming you haven't, how can we get homeowners to come to us? Let's see. Buyer's agents should ask for their 5% agent fee of the purchase contract, especially in this market. Michael Markham's still with the lawsuit. Buyer's agents should just ask for their 5% buyer. We're trying to get 5% total to split. Who's asking 5? That's why I don't talk about specifics. I especially was interested when they called in who was it? Not Gary Keller, Alan Dalton, one of those big wigs, when they were talking about coaching and training and talking about specific commissions. And it's always been a thing that and yeah, HUD used to pay 5%, but that's just like builders. They're not like the agents. Agents have always been different than builders across the board. New homes have always been different across the board for what they get. They're always more. When it comes to agents, sellers are not going to say, hey, the builder's paying that much, we should too. It just doesn't line up. We're lucky to keep it status quo. But when they had called one of those guys to the stand and cornered them about an interview on a Tom Ferry podcast about specific commission protection and naming. I remember back in the day when you would go to the webinars or the seminars, the sales trainers and coaches, when they tried to avoid saying 6%, they would say around, like they would deliberately say this like wild swirling, maybe around 5-6%, right? Because we have to talk about an amount to say how much we're trying to negotiate. And that's what, that video was talking about was X percent plus more or X percent minus less, and how to convince homeowners to demonstrate that you're worth more and some are worth less, right? But some of those things didn't help the case. So again, that's why I say, don't bother with it. If you guys want to discuss the lawsuit in other platforms and other forums, I encourage it. Just on my forum, it doesn't change. None of this is ever nothing. And I tell you what, I know this because I know presidents. The president of the United States. I started in 1993. If you said, James, for $1 million, who was the president of the United States? Oh, it gets even better. I was in the Army. The commander-in-chief is the president of the United States. If you said, James, for $1 million, who was your commander-in-chief? Why you were in an active military, a soldier? I think it was Bush. I think. James, when you got your real estate license, who was the president for $1 million? I think it was Bush because I was just out of the military. See, this is the thing is like, with the president, when they changed, I was so not give a shit about it that it didn't affect my success. It didn't affect my success. When we take it to, because everybody will know that real estate is about local. It's a microcosm of humans and their own lives. We all have our little pods that we live in. And although the global issues do affect us in some way, we're still living our own lives, and the politics never bothered me. I never said F the governor. I never thought damn president. It was not a thing up until like COVID. And then I became a little more aware of who was dumb and who was not, who was after us. And you go down this rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, and at the end of the day, if I just had this switch that I just yanked my ear and I became deaf, blind, and dumb to politics, and yanked this ear that said just prospect, the people who I go to at the door who say they might be interested didn't care about politics. Because I'd walk into a home with a Biden flag, and I'd walk in with a Trump flag. I'd walk in with a Bernie flag. It didn't matter. Because they weren't hiring me for office. They were hiring me to sell their house. And the relationship I was building, if they had a political opinion, we didn't discuss it, right? Especially if I didn't agree with it, I would just nod my head and smile. If I agreed with it, I would nod my head and smile and go, mm-hmm. But that was it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter then. It doesn't matter now. And I know some of you will say, but you need to be educated. My wife likes that one. But you need to be educated. Here's what you need to be educated on. Objection handling. You need to be educated on systems to make your lead flow efficient. You need to be educated on systems to lead generate, follow up, sell, close, repeat. It's I'm almost better throwing my phone away, throwing my computer in the pool, and going on paper. If you go to any number one agent in any town USA, you might be surprised that they're not on TikTok, they're not on Facebook, they're not on Instagram. The ones that we see because we're on it, we see, oh man, they're crushing it on these channels. But they're one in a city that they're crushing. But there's another 10 that are crushing them, or in that line, that are not. So why are we bothering with this stuff? Okay? Michael Markham has got a few things to say. The only alternative is to have an auction on the front lawn. How will that work out? It won't work out. California is too spread out. There's not enough density of population for auctions. I'm telling you, the only solution is one more piece of paper in our file that says, are you sure? And if anyone here is in a California real estate, if anyone here practices California real estate, you all know there's like 3 to 4 separate pieces of paper that clarify the agency relationship. So this lawsuit for Californians makes no sense. We're like, how does the seller not know? They signed like 5 papers saying, hey, you know, it's on the document. It says, here's what you pay me. Here's what I'm paying them. Are we good? Sign here. You couldn't do that. But in other states, maybe that area isn't there. Maybe it's a handshake. I don't know. I don't know how that could be so. I don't know. It's got to be a different set of rules, because I know in other states it's just different rules. That's the only way it would work. But otherwise, California, we just pick up the phones, knock on the doors. If you don't have a solution to that, because that is the true problem, not any of these other problems, Not, and I think it might even go as far as to say none of the problems on social have anything to do with the problems in reality. Can we agree with that? I think I might say it. None of the problems on the LCD has anything to do with the problems IRL, in real life. The real problem is inventory. The only solution I know right now, and have always known, is to find inventory. It's always been, nothing fixes problems, the real estate agent's problem, like a listing, like a sellable listing. Ooh, man, a sellable listing fixes all your problems. Fixes your money problems, fixes your marriage, fixes your car being dirty because you can pay people, fixes your kids being miserable because you can buy them shit to go away, fixes the dog's limp because you can afford to take him to the vet, fixes your psoriasis because you can buy insurance and get the right medication. It just fixes everything. It fixes your depression because you can go to a therapist and get meds. It fixes everything. Money fixes everything. So let's be real about what we need to start doing right now. Right now, what we need to do, and thank you about saying it's a good talk. I'd like to think everything I say is making sense to some of you. Again, I think my channel remains unpopular because it speaks the truth. And I know that because other channels speak the truth and they are not big. And you know who they are, but they're not big. Greg Harrelson, Neil Schwartz, Mike Ferry. Their channels are small time, but they talk about prospecting. The ones that don't, they do something else, right? They talk about the things that make people feel better. I'm just talking about prospecting. That's it. I stay in my lane and I just talk about that because that's really our job. Our job is not shooting videos and informing the public because in my town, and I had a student this morning who was saying, James, most of my clients, they don't even have email. They don't even speak English. So when I call them and I tell them I want the email, they're like, no, just come by. You know they're not on TikTok. You know they don't have Instagram. You know they don't have Facebook, and they probably don't have a computer. And if it is, how many people do you know that use a computer just to go on, pay their bills, and get off? A lot of people just have a computer or a phone to answer it and a computer to pay their bills and get off. They don't live in the world we live in because we're always looking for a new way. And the phones and the technology is one of the most powerful devices to lead us to believe that something new is happening. AI in particular. AI. I'll take 1 minute about AI. ChatGPT. Very soon, although we hear about AI telemarketers, right? AI video recordings of your face and your voice, and you just type in a prompt and it's going to speak to it. How long do you think it's going to be before there is a badge at the corner that says, this ain't real? This motherfucker ain't real. How long do you think your preferred client is going to put up with seeing that badge on your shit? They're going to be like, I want to talk to a human. When an AI robot makes a call, and I've had some good ones, they're already there. I've had one company that I'm listening to, they're legit. All you got to do is train the bot to speak, just like a bot that you put on your Facebook to answer all of it. They speak with your voice. You handle it. You spend 2 or 3 hours objection handling, read all the objections. They download all the objection handlers from the internet and they record your voice. And they have all of the objections on the internet. Every possible variable is handled. And if I link it to my YouTube channel, all my live streams, all my live calls through Mojo, I can make an indistinguishable artificial intelligence telemarketer. Now imagine this. An artificial intelligence telemarketer costs $10,000 a month. Let's say that's the price. So who buys an artificial intelligence telemarketer? How many of these AI cold callers who do what I do, because it'll still be like, what's that, Paul Bunyan, James Festini with his axe, and then the machine, man versus machine. I still fucking win. I might drop dead. I'm still going to win the machines. No fucking machine going to beat me because I'm real. I just pull the plug and they're dead. But how long do you think it will be before AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, and all of these other carriers push a button that says, don't fucking, but no. Because it's the same thing as leaving an automate. It is the same. And as far as I'm concerned, the TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, already protects consumers against automated telemarketing. AI is automated telemarketing. So, problem solved. Don't go thinking that you're going to pay an AI service to make your calls and not be violating the TCPA rules. You are leaving an answering machine message to a human, and I don't care if they are so good that they don't know they're talking to a human. You are going to get caught and fined and shut down because you are the equivalent of leaving an automated machine. And if you never watched The Simpsons, the episode where Homer Simpson tries to sell something by leaving automated messages, and he pushed a button and it called all of Springfield all day, all night, leaving this, hey, you guys want some, whatever he was selling, but he pushed a button and it telemarketed all night, all day, harassing people, right? That will cross a line because you just won't be able to duplicate what I do. That's why I don't leave messages by pushing a button. Although Mojo has that button, I can push it because I know if little old granny comes over and picks up the phone and says hello and I'm not there, I violated the rules. And my confidence in telemarketing comes from not breaking the rules. I have 100% confidence that I'm not calling people on the do not call list. And I have 100% confidence that I'm following all the TCPA compliance. So therefore, when someone gets mad at me and wants to come get me, they got nothing. They can have my name, they can have my number. My caller ID says my name and number. And if you tell me put me on your do not call list, I do it because I don't want to bother you. I make my script short and sweet. So we talk about the solution to the problem, and that is inventory. You want to know the short answer? Find homeowners who are interested in selling to fix the solution for low inventory, which, by the way, 30 years I've been doing this. I've never heard an agent say, I've got too many listings. So I don't know what this low inventory is because I don't know what high inventory is. It just isn't. We want listings. We always want listings. I want 100 listings and I don't want 90 of them to not sell. I want 90 of them not selling right away and 10 of them sitting, and I'm good with managing homeowners and letting them know how the market is and keeping in touch with them. That's when it will matter, when you do carry inventory and you have automated AI technology to communicate with your sellers. You do it personally, but other methods will say, here's where we're at. And you let them know. Instead of trying so hard to make AI fool the public in thinking that it's real, why not go to the opposite and say, yes, this is my AI assistant, and my AI assistant is very good. If you ever have any issues, here's my real assistant. Here's me. It's my phone number. I still answer it. Okay? Call me old school. I'm not letting my robot take care of you. My competition is. Is that what you want? All right, there's a script coming up right there. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, they use robots. Do you trust the robots? Anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. This is, I think, a very powerful session. I covered a lot. I do one-on-one coaching. If you guys want to learn systems and have the confidence and have the formula for picking up the phone, knocking on doors, questions to ask, where to get the database, where do you get the listings, how do you scrub the do not call list, what's your script, what do you leave at the door, what do I do when I get them? Like now I need to know what to do now. And so I right? And so we go in and we, how do I generate 50 bona fide homeowners who might be interested in selling? Granted, the inventory remains low, but I have a very large database of people who continue to say maybe. Watch my inventory when the inventory skyrockets. I have the names and numbers of the people who are on the fence. I'm still ahead of the game. I still continue to get listings. If your inventory is low, the fastest way to do it is to pick up the phone and talk to someone. The fastest way to pick up the phone and talk to someone, YouTube, to see if I am still frozen. All right, I froze for a second.